Nam of the holy names, Prema and of love of God, Mala, a garland, Ganti, stringing together, Paraila, he put it on, Samsare, the whole material world. Translation. Thus he spread kirtan even among the untouchables. He wove a wreath of the holy name and prema, with which he garlanded the entire material world. There's no purport to this verse, so we'll go on to the next one, which has a very wonderful purport. In this way, assuming the sentiment of a devotee, he preached devotional service while practicing it himself. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When Srila Rupa Goswami met Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Prayag, he offered his respectful obeisances by submitting that Lord Chaitanya was more magnanimous than any other avatar of Krishna, because he was distributing love of Krishna. His mission was to enhance love of Krishna. In the human form of life, the highest achievement is to attain the platform of love of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya did not invent a system of religion, as people sometimes assume. Religious systems are meant to show the existence of God, who is then generally approached as the cosmic order supplier. But Lord Chaitanya, his transcendental mission is to distribute love of God to everyone. Anyone who accepts God as the Supreme can take to the process of chanting Hare Krishna and become a lover of God. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya is the most magnanimous. This munificent broadcasting of devotional service is possible only for Krishna himself. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. This is a long purport, but it's really essential, so I'll simply touch upon certain elements within it. Next paragraph, Srila Prabhupada explains how in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna taught the philosophy of surrender. And that Sarva Dharma Parityajya is included amongst the last words of Bhagavad Gita. That surrender being the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. And that's the point where Bhagavad Gita falls silent as Srimad Bhagavatam begins. And through 9 cantos highlighting the surrender of various devotees of different avatars, culminating in the Brijabasis, Krishna, through his devotees, demonstrates the actual nature of surrender. And that great scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, falls silent with the glorification of the holy names. And that's where Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita opens. And then Srila Prabhupada goes on to quote Srila Swarup Damodar, who establishes in his own teachings that Lord Chaitanya is Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani, which is a very deep topic to contemplate as we prepare our hearts to invite, receive, and welcome Lord Gauranga on his appearance tomorrow. We selected this verse not so much out of appreciation for its poetic imagery, nor for its natural metaphors or aesthetic symbology, all of which are exceptional, but more so because it sings in the only suitable language to depict such sublime theological truths for the event we're preparing for today and will be fully celebrating tomorrow. And anyone who happens to be a connoisseur of fine theology can really appreciate, in addition to the virtues of this verse we have already mentioned, its prophetic component, which integrates our daily experience today with the event which transpired just over 500 years ago, as well as the future prospects for devotees in this movement. Prophecy is not simply a means to engage the mind. It's actually a very important science to help us prepare for what's coming, as well as to understand and integrate present circumstances with past prophecies and future eventualities. Amongst Lord Chaitanya's Kirtaniyas, Madhava Ghosh and Vasudeva Ghosh are very prominent. Not simply for the emotional content of their songs, equally for the theological truths depicted in them. Vasudeva Ghosh sings regarding the appearance of Lord Gauranga. He puts it in the negative. If Lord Gauranga had not appeared as the Yuga avatar, which is actually an understatement, we'll address that later, then what would have become of all of us? How could we tolerate living in this mortal realm? Who could ever know the topmost limits of loving mellows which comprise the glory of Srimati Radharani? Who would know how to access the power infused in the dust of the lotus feet of the gopis, which is a prerequisite for attaining the supreme sweetness of Vrinda's forest? Very concise theological appreciations. So today, in preparing our hearts, it's a very, to maximize the experience tomorrow, it's an appropriate and potent time to contemplate deeply Who is Lord Chaitanya? Why did he come? And what did he come to give? Perfect knowledge descends from Krishna by Shastra, through Guru, and by the grace of devotees, without which there's no means to properly understand the topic, which Srila Prabhupada addresses in his purport. And even those who know Krishna to some degree, who know Shastra to some degree, they consider that Lord Krishna and his inseparable counterparts, Lord Gauranga, are avatars, Yuga avatars. Which means expansions of Kiradaksha Vishnu, through whom all the avatars appear. Kiradaksha Vishnu, as the supersoul of the universe, expands into many avatars, Yuga avatars, Lila avatars, Guna avatars. But the basic principle that Lord Krishna establishes in the Gita, to establish Dharma, which means basically cosmic law and order, without which we'd have simply chaos and anarchy. And to set the proper standard, as was assured to Brahma, accompanied by Bhumi in the form of the cow, followed by the Devas, when they approached the shore of the Milk Ocean. They couldn't reach Svetadvip, but Brahma, through prayer, communed with Kiradaksha Vishnu, who responded in Brahma's heart, which he shared with the others, that Krishna said, I will come. And he did. And he continues to do so. 999 times in every day of Brahma. So Brahma is seeing Krishna's pastimes, and yet even he was bewildered in the previous age. Dwapara Yuga, observing Krishna's Vrindavan Lila, and he saw how Gopal, not only effortlessly, but quite playfully, delivered Aghasura, who's not like, what you can imagine by seeing these friendly little snakes in New Vrindavan and trying to expand them up to 8 miles long. No, it's more like Chinese dragons expanded to a form 8 miles long and so fierce that if Aga simply turned his eyes slightly upwards, the Devas who were who were observing Krishna's Leela from the sky, they would hide in the clouds. From their heavenly position, they were terrified by Aghasura here on earth. But when he wasn't looking up and they were watching and they saw that Gopal made a game, childhood play, out of freeing this world from not just this planet, the whole universe, from this terrorist, Aghasura. So Brahma was thinking, this child must be some special form of my father, Lord Narayan. Who else would have such glory and power? But then the next minute he's seeing that in celebration for the event, Gopala has a picnic with his friends. And this was not like picnics that we know, because the gopas were arranged in concentric circles around Krishna, each with his own intimate gopas and concentric circles around them. So it was like a lotus. Because the way they were dressed, it's kind of like a lotus within the aura of a rainbow. Krishna was the center, surrounded by his 8 intimate sakhas, who were surrounded by their 8, and then thousands and thousands of gopas. Now, it's not like it was crowded, because this is not restricted by 4-dimensional reality. And in that assembly of gopas expanding in all directions across the slopes of Govardhan Hill, each gopa was experiencing simultaneously that Krishna's looking at me, and he's communicating just with me. Even though all these other gopas are so much better than me, Krishna is so gracious, he's interacting just with me. It didn't make them proud, it made them more humble. And Brahma's watching all this. And then came the clincher. I don't know if you know what that means. It's a blacksmith term. Krishna opened his lunchbox to see what Mother Yashoda had prepared for him, because it's never the same. Every day it's, and then, Srimati Radharani helps her and Mother Rohini. So it's always a big surprise what's going to be in Krishna's lunchbox. So he opens it up to see, and all the gopas open their lunchboxes. And then they all taste the love of their mothers, which they experience in the taste of their lunch for the day. And Krishna was thinking, Mother Yashoda's cooking, assisted by Srimati Radharani and Mother Rohini, is so outstanding that he would take a sample and he'd tell his gopas, try this. Now their mothers are also comparable in their cooking, the Mother Rohini. So the gopas would sample their lunch and say, Krishna, this is really good, try this. And they'd hand their remnants to Krishna. And he would eat their remnants. And he would relish that. And Brahma is watching. He had just come to the conclusion that this child must be an expansion of my father, Lord Narayan. But my father would never do that. He would never eat the remnants of farmers' sons. So he was completely bewildered. He wanted to know, who is this child? So it wasn't a challenge. It was an innocent test to see who he is based on how he would respond if Brahma made all the gopas. And remember, they're not even cowherd boys, they're calf herd boys. Gopastami had not yet come. They're not, 8 years old where they can herd cows. They're herding calves. So Brahma stole the calves and the calf herd boys and hid them in the cave to see what's Gopal. But because Gopal had already wandered off, because Brahma first stole the calves, gopas were alarmed. Krishna told them, don't worry, don't interrupt your lunch, just continue. I will find the calves. So he took a big lump of what we call Krishna surprise in ISKCON to sustain him for his journey. And he wandered off into the forest, following the tracks of the calves, but they were nowhere to be found. And when he returned to the picnic, the gopas were nowhere to be found. So then Krishna was perplexed. How can I return to Vrindavan? How can I face all the cow mothers? I mean, yeah, and then the human mothers too. When they find out I failed to bring back the calves and the gopas, I can't face them. What to do? So he's bewildered. So then he thought, well, it's really no problem. He just expanded as the calves and the gopas. And then Brahma looked down after a moment of his time, which was a year here on earth. And Krishna's still standing there with the Krishna surprise in his hand. But all the gopas and the calves who Brahma had stolen are peacefully continuing their picnic. And Brahma was thinking, I just stole them and hid them in a cave. Krishna steal them back? And he looked in the cave and they're still there. He looked back to Govardhan, they're still there. And then he's looking back and forth, and then when he looked back to Govardhan, he saw that all the gopas and calves had become four-armed Narayan forms. So it's a long and wonderful pastime, but the gist of it is that Brahma realized that Krishna is not some form of Narayan. Krishna is the source of unlimited Narayan forms. And then, he came and bowed down and offered his prayers to Krishna. Krishna's just standing there with the Krishna surprise in his hand, listening to Brahma's most eloquent prayers. He's the original founder Acharya of our Sampradaya in ancient times. And his prayers are recounted in Srimad Bhagavatam. But Krishna wasn't really hearing what he was saying. Because all he could think was, who is this four-headed personality? Where did he come from? And what's he talking about? I don't understand any of this. I just want to find my friends. So it was only by his silence did Krishna acknowledge to Brahma, okay, that's enough. He went back to Brahmaloka totally despondent. Thinking he had committed offense, he couldn't even apologize, or Krishna didn't reciprocate with his attempts to do so. He was devastated. He began to reflect. Krishna's going to come again in a most magnanimous form. He will forgive me. So Brahma descended to Navadvip Dham, Antardvip, the very heart of the central island, which is the central stamen of the lotus, Navadvip Dham, and he performed severe tapasya to attract the Lord's favor. Not eating, not sleeping, not drinking anything until finally, in his meditation, he saw a golden aura, and he opened his eyes and saw this most exquisitely beautiful golden form before him. And he bowed down and prayed that I'm a lowly, worthless, wretched fool controlled by pride, and therefore I could not understand your Braj Leela. I could have taken birth as a gopa, but I was deprived. So when you come in your next appearance here in Navadvip Dham, please engage me in your service. Arrange for me a birth that will not allow me to again fall prey to my wicked mind, thereby becoming proud and thus bereft of interacting with you and your associates. And Lord Gauranga replied, yes, I will arrange that. Your birth will be in a Muslim family. Which means that you'll be an outcast to the Hindus. But because of your chanting Hare Krishna, you'll be considered an outcast to the Muslims, which means you're an outcast to the outcasts. Doesn't leave much to be proud of. And yet, you will be interacting with me, critical to my lila, seeing me throughout your life, and leaving this world, you'll be seeing me face to face. Now listen, Brahma, to the antar, the secret, the confidential matter of the heart from which Antardweep receives its name. Antardweep, where the house of Jagannath Mishra prepares for the appearance of Lord Gauranga. Lord Gauranga said to Brahma, the love of Srimati Radharani is beyond my comprehension. Therefore, I will have to assume her form, her bhav, to experience her love for myself, and in the process distribute that prem to all the world. And then he disappeared. Brahma fell down in the dust, soaking with his tears as he prayed, "O Lord Gauranga, life and master of my soul, when will I see you again?" So, anyway, the original point before that tangent was that even Brahma was bewildered by Krishna's Leela. And only by entering Chaitanya Leela was he able to understand. So, this tendency to be bewildered is quite consistent in Chaitanya Leela. Krishna is bewildered by the love of Radha. She's bewildered by her Swapni Vilas, that dream of Lord Gauranga. You know, she woke one morning in the Kunj. It was just really shocked. She told Krishna that I had this dream on the sandy bank of a river. There was this golden personality calling out to you and also to me with great ecstasy. When I heard him calling to me, I thought he must be you. But when he called for me, when he called for you, I thought he must be me. Now, I never felt attraction to anybody but you until I saw this golden person. And now that my affection has been divided, she was thinking she would have to give up her life. And he said, no. That is you and me combined. And she was greatly relieved. That is Swapna Vilas. Advaitacharya, the efficient cause of the appearance of the Lord in this, he was bewildered. Because for years after Nimai had appeared, Lord Gauranga, the Advaitacharya, Karnadaksha Vishnu and Sadashiv combined, is still in fervent prayer, like a lion calling out, "Lord, come, resounding in Vaikuntha, and then his prayers trailing off into innocent cries like a little child. Lord Gauranga, he's admitted many times that I was sleeping in the ocean of milk, and your cries woke me up and brought me here. What's not always so evident is years after Nimai appeared, he's still calling to the Lord to descend. Hadn't yet realized that the Lord was already living next door. So, this is Leela. The Braj Leela is kept confidential because it's so subject to bewilderment. Now, if Krishna, if Radha, if Advaita are bewildered, what to speak of us? Therefore, this Braj Leela is kept confidential. It's beyond Vaikuntha, beyond Dwarka. And even though it was formerly revealed, very few understood. Brahma couldn't understand, Indra, Lord Shiva, they were all Lakshmi, they were all bewildered. So, and Krishna has to be bewildered. Because Braj Leela means there's 4 mellows. That's only possible in Braj. In Vaikuntha, what to speak of the material world, there's only 2 mellows. Shanta and Dasya Ras. You can't have friendship with the Lord. Dwarka, Mathura, Vaikuntha. Because friendship means equality. What to speak of being his parent, which means superior. What to speak of his lover, which means you're controlled. To enjoy and dispense those rasas, Krishna is dependent on his Yogamaya, who in Braj is Vrindadevi, who casts her spell. To not only make the devotees forgetful that he's God, because you can't have that kind of intimate, loving relationships with him if you're aware that he's God. He has to cover that. What we oftentimes overlook is he has to cover himself as well, because if he's aware that he's God, he can't relish the rasa of being the friend, the child, the lover of his devotees. So everybody's covered. But it's Yogamaya, which enhances love, not the reflection of Mahamaya we know so well in this world. So, the advent of the Lord is preceded by a host of eminent devotees who took birth in different regions of the world to be inevitably and irresistibly drawn to Navadvip and Jagannath Puri, to be integrated in his Leela in time. Like a galaxy of stars of the first magnitude, these devotees appeared to set the scene for the upcoming rising benediction moon. Did anyone see the moon tonight? It was saffron, as was the rising sun. And those devotees, like stars, arranging for the Lord to take the foreground position in an illustration, a natural illustration, which is intelligible only by the grace of his associates, each of whom offers in their own unique and personal way certain truths which are more instructive than even the pastimes and precepts of the Lord himself, who in truth is never by himself. He's always accompanied by his most beautiful, liberated, and loving associates. And the authors, Vaishnava authors, offer the esoteric view of the events. Kaviraj Goswami explains how Lord Gauranga and his associates, who accompany him from and with Svetadvip, that portion of Goloka Vrindavan reserved for the Golden Avatar and his associates, where the divinity's most benevolent nature predominates and prevails over all his other divine qualities. That's where Lord Chaitanya dwells, in Svetadvip, as does Krishna in Braj, where Srimati Radharani sets the highest standard of love, culminating in separation, where the anguish of love becomes so intensified that the devotees have no recourse other than to chant Hare Krishna, take shelter of the holy name, wherein they find union within the separation. And that's why Lord Gauranga at Chura Gopinath Mandir, telling the story he had heard from Ishwara Puri about Madhavendra Puri, culminating in that verse, which no fourth person has the ability to understand the depth. The verse, which is like that Malaya sandalwood Madhavendra Puri was bringing for Gopal. The more you grind it, the more fragrance expands. Like the Kastuba jewel, which is the best of all gems, this verse is the finest of all mellow poetry. It was spoken by Srimati Radharani to articulate the anguish of all the Brijabasis after Uddhava had spent time with them. And then he also left for Mathura, as did Krishna before him, and looking down the road, crying out, Ai Dina Dayatanatahe, O my Lord, most merciful Master, Lord of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Not seeing you now, my grief-stricken heart has become delirious. What am I to do now? Madhavendra Puri was famous for singing that same verse as he departed this world. And only he and Srimati Radharani and Lord Gauranga have the ability to comprehend the profundity in that verse. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya, not only playing the role, actually becoming Radha, is demonstrating how the Lord is to be perfectly served by teaching how to follow in her footsteps. Lord Chaitanya enrolled under the banner of Madhva, whose sampradaya he found very effective in defeating Mayavad and establishing the eternal nature of the deity. Although Madhva's mood was not, because Madhvacharya did not preach or teach the service of Radha and Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya established connection, not identity of teachings with him, and protected himself from the charge, the accusation of deviating from the tenets of the founder Acharya, in modern times, Madhva, through communion with Madhavendra Puri, the first germinating seed of that love of Vrindavan, to expand into the tree of Lord Gauranga, Lord Chaitanya established himself in communion with Madhavendra Puri through his guru, Maharaj Ishwara Puri. And just after his initiation at Gaya, the seed of that love, embodied in the mantra, as Lord Gauranga was meditating on the sound of that mantra, on the sound of the holy name within the mantra, it bore fruit with his initiation. And that night, under the impulse of love, which had for so long been gathering strength within his heart, but he had concealed for reasons of his own, that night of his initiation, that Golok Prema Dana burst through all restraints, and his students, not disciples, students of the great Pandit, Nimai, who had accompanied him from Navadvip to Gaya, they were shocked to hear their master crying in a voice which was not his. Prananath, darling, where have you gone after stealing my heart? I found my Lord, and now he's abandoned me. And he was crying and wailing and rolling in the dust. And his students were astonished because their master was normally very reserved on matters of devotion. And now he is adrift and lost in the ocean of loving separation from himself. The rest of his life was a search for Krishna. Did he ever find him? The search continues forever. So, his students, they approached the great professor Nimai because they wanted, a few days studying under him would award you a diploma superior to anything attainable in any university of creation. They didn't come for this, the agony of separation. So they're all bewildered. Nimai was bewildered till he heard a voice from the sky. It was the Devas addressing him. Our Lord, you appear for the sake of deliverance of this world. Don't forget your purpose, which we are articulating according to your will. You have come to freely distribute the treasure of Golok through kirtan. So please return to Navadvip and inaugurate your movement there. You will surely reach Mathura in time. So he gathered his students. They returned to Navadvip. While his students were contemplating, whose voice was that echoing in his songs? And that's recorded in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Daughter of King Vrishabhana, paradoxically revealing the highest ecstasy than the anguish of separation. Because that's why the six Goswamis and Srila Prabhupada advocate cultivating the mood of separation from Krishna. Not like the Sahajas, I've seen Krishna. No, like the Goswamis, Hey Radhe Brajate Vike Chalalite, Hey Nanda Shuno Kutaha, where are you? Bank of Jamuna? Slopes of Govardhan, where are you? Because that anguish of separation reveals an inner lust by the devotees who embody and cherish those four rasas, thereby fulfilling his deepest yearning and nature. So he revealed all that in his Braj Leela. And then he disappeared. And then he began to reflect. I revealed my Braj Leela for the benefit of the world. But how will anyone attain it? Because, you know, like Brahma, people will see that this Brajendra Nandana, Krishna, is the Supreme Lord. And therefore, the natural impulse will be to worship him in awe and veneration. Seeing my opulences, Krishna was reflecting right here in Chaitanya Charitamrita, meaning his Braj Lila. Seeing my opulences, people will naturally worship me in awe and veneration, which means Vaidhi Bhakti, coming from the Vidhi, the rules and regulations of Shastra. But that Vaidhi Bhakti can't control me, it can't subdue me, because the affection is made feeble, it is made distant by awareness of my divinity. And thus Krishna was thinking he's deprived, and the devotees are also bereft of the sweetness of Vrindavan. And as a consequence, they attain Vaikuntha as the perfection of their Vaidhi Bhakti, from where there is no access to Vrindavan. So Krishna was thinking that his Braj Lila was not complete, because although everything was revealed, not everything was revealed, the access was not revealed. That is through Gaura Lila. So the only solution he considered, I have to come back to personally inaugurate not Yuga Dharma, Prema Dharma, Prema Nama Sankirtan, thereby induce the world to join their voices in that immortal hymn, in that eternal dance as they prepare for Rasa Lila, whether directly or indirectly. So to reconsider in simple terms, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, the Lord, who is served in Vaidhi Bhakti. Which leads to Vaikuntha. Simultaneously, internally, he is the queen of the Rasa Lila, followed and served by Raganuga on the pathway leading to Braja. Krishna Varnam Tvisa Krishnam Sangupanga Saparsadam Yagyai Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti Hisameda Saha. The forecast for the Kali Yuga, not every Kali Yuga, only the Kali Yuga of the 28th Divya Yuga in the Manvantara Vaivashvata Manu. Krishna means Gaura, who is served in a special kind of yajna. Not like the fire sacrifice where you offer your grains and they're consumed. This is a special kind of yajna capable of consuming the false ego in the fire of devotion, leaving only the golden essence of prema behind. When Lord Chaitanya was staying at Gundicha, which is Vrindavan within Jagannath Puri, when Lord Jagannath is there for Anavasara, being served by the Shabarus when he was feigning an illness and taking his public bath. And then Hera Panchami Hera means to see, Panchami means the fifth day. Big festival. And Kashi Mishra, the superintendent of the, King Prataparudra, told Kashi Mishra, the superintendent of the temple, make this Hara Panchami even more spectacular than Rath Yatra. Just open the royal storehouse and prepare more prasadam even than Rath Yatra, so that Lord Chaitanya will be pleased. So Hara Panchami means that the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Devi, who resides in Jagannath Puri temple, and 5 days ago, her husband left with Subhadra and Balaram for a festival. He said he'd be back the next day. And his standard departure address, I'll be back the next day. So after 5 days, he becomes jealously angry. So Lord Chaitanya came with Swarup Damodar and Srivas Pandit and the other devotees to observe Lakshmi coming out of the temple in great fanfare, displaying all her opulence, preceded by bands playing, singers, dancers performing, and just the most outstanding display of her divine opulences. And she was angry. She had her servants arrest all of Jagannath's devotees, bind them around the waist, handcuff them, arrest them, seize all their possessions, bring them before Lakshmi, have them fall flat at her lotus feet, begging to be released if they bring Jagannath back to her the very next day. And then it doesn't stop there. They take sticks and they start smashing at Jagannath's chariot. Very intense scene, and Lord Chaitanya's Swarup Damodar can't conceal their smiles, so they have to cover their faces with their hands. And then Lord Chaitanya says to Swarup Damodar, I have never seen such egoistic pride as this. I've heard about something close to it in Satyabhama, but she didn't go to such extremes, And then Srivas Thakur, emulating the mood of Lakshmi Devi, comes in. Now remember, they're all in the mood of innocent little children playing their Leela. So even though they're arresting people and attacking the chariot, it's all fun. It's all loving. It's all sweet. There's no animosity. There's no aggression. So don't get it wrong. So then, Lord Chaitanya, anyway, Srivas Thakur, he supports Lakshmi, and he challenges in a loving, childlike way, Swarup Damodar and Lord Gauranga. How is it that your master, Jagannath, could just abandon the supreme opulence and glory of the goddess of devotion, and in preference for a few leaves, twigs, and peacock feathers, go to see the flower garden of Srimati Radharani? What is wrong with him? Why does he do such things? The opulence of Vrindavan consists only of some minerals from the hills, some gunja berries. My mistress, the goddess of fortune, sits on a throne made of jewels and gems. Why would he leave her to go to Braj? And then Lord Chaitanya says to Srivas Pandit, your mood is just like Narada Muni, who of course he is. Krishna's opulence coming through Lakshmi is having an effect on you. And therefore, you are oblivious to the supreme opulence which is found only in Vrindavan. Swarup Damodar is a pure devotee of Vrindavan. He doesn't know what opulence is because he's simply absorbed in the sweetness of intimate rasas with Krishna. And then Swarup Damodar said, no, that's not actually the case. He addressed Srivas Thakur, have you forgotten what real opulence is? As found only in Vrindavan? In Vrindavan, the entire forest is kalpavrikshes. The landscape covered by kamadhenus. The rivers, the ponds, the kunds are all nectar. The walking is all dancing. All motion is dance. All vibration is song. All orchestrated by Krishna's flute. In Vrindavan, the cows are all kamadhenus, who provide whatever anybody desires. The trees are kalpavrikshas which do the same. The water is all nectar. The motion is all dance. Everything is song. The dust of Vrindavan, which forms the anklets of the gopis. Any speck of that dust far surpasses the opulence of all the Vaikunthas, Dwarka, and Mathura combined. Vrindavan is the supreme opulence and the source of every reflected opulence in Vaikuntha. And then Swarupa Damodar just went on and on. May Srimati Radharani's Kila Kinchita Bhava, which is like a bouquet, bring good fortune to all. When Krishna blocked her way to the Dhanagati, she acted angry. Her eyes became reddish, decorated with false tears. And that just gave Krishna all the more pleasure. And Swarup Damodar just sang on and on. Lord Gauranga could not contain himself. He began to dance. All the devotees danced. But when the devotees became fatigued and they could dance no longer, Lord Gauranga was oblivious and he kept dancing and dancing and dancing. And the effect of Swarup Damodar's songs of Vrindavan dissolved any last remnant of his identity as Krishna. And he revealed his inner mood and the divine form of Srimati Radharani dancing in her very form amongst the devotees who watched in utter wonder. And even Lord Nityananda could not approach Lord Gauranga when he was in that mood and form. It was only Swarup Damodar who could come close and inform him, the devotees are all tired. If you don't stop dancing, they won't be able to take prasad, which King Prataparudra has provided for all of us. So please come back to external consciousness. So, back to the purport. Srila Prabhupada says that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna concludes his message with Sarvadhamma Pratyaja. Surrender. Mamekam Sharanam. By Sharanam you attain Braja. What is that Sharanam? That's displayed in Srimad Bhagavatam. But there's an apparent contradiction because in Gita, Krishna says he reciprocates with whatever mellows the devotees serve him. Whereas in the Bhagavatam, he confesses his inability to repay or reciprocate the gopis' love even within the lifetime of Brahma. And this is perplexing, as the Lord of the six opulences, he considers he has nothing to offer his devotees in exchange which is equal or comparable to the value of their love. And he told the gopis that you, as the sole custodians of prema, are the only ones who can repay yourselves. But after telling them that, Krishna, who is ultimately the perfect supreme gentleman, archetype embodying impeachable character and behavior, is not one to remain forever remiss in dealings with his devotees. And that's confirmed in his thoughts in CC, where Krishna considers it to live with the burden of this debt to my devotees is very difficult, nearly unbearable. And still, he is unable to fulfill his obligation, as expressed in Gita, to reciprocate with the devotees in response to their love. And this is not a fault or blemish on Krishna's character. It's rather an ornament depicting and decorating and highlighting his perfection, confirming his name, Bhaktavatsala, the admirer of his devotees. And in that supreme drama of prema, the resolution to this dilemma is found in a conception of the different roles Radha and Krishna play, different complementary roles. Technically, as the supreme lover, Radha serves the absolute beloved, Krishna. Each loves the other unlimited, eternally, ever expanding, and though the nature of that love differs, in terms of quantity, Krishna's love is perfect. It's unlimited. It's ever expanding, and therefore competent and adequate. It is in terms of quality, where the ashraya, the abode of that love, becomes prominent, and where, to be philosophically analyzed as the two aspects of divine love, personified in two features of the Absolute Truth. The Vishaya, object of love, is Krishna, who, to varying degrees, dispenses and thus disperses his love to inclusively embrace all souls in all creation for all eternity. And because his love is dispersed, he can't experience or practice that single-minded focus on one beloved, as does Radha personify. And therefore, he can't reciprocate her love, either in quality or in that single-minded focus. Exclusively on him, in contrast to Krishna's inclusive love for all. And that's why Krishna said the gopis is unable to reciprocate. And yet, as the name Rasaraj verifies, Krishna, in spite of being unable to reciprocate his devotees' love, he continues to pursue his own enjoyment through unlimited leelas, each expanding and revealing more of his same propensity to enjoy, thereby ever increasing his debt to the devotees. Culminating in his stealing their hearts, thereby amassing for himself an infinity of ever-increasing obligations. And for him to desist from enjoying leelas of his own creative making, which sustain and delight his devotees, to focus instead on reimbursing them would necessitate an entirely different and complementary archetype to take birth. Sri Gaura Purnima ki jai. If only he could assume the role and mood and complexion of the ashraya, could he find the emergence of leelas which he, as the Vishaya, remains unable to experience. And only when the character of the ashraya, Radha, becomes incorporated in the nature of the Vishaya Krishna, is he able at last to settle her debt to her, who he chooses as the exclusive focus and model for his experience, due to her embodying as the origin, pinnacle, and fountainhead of all love in all mellows, for all devotees, for all time, and thus within her love only is Krishna able to experience and reciprocate the rasas, the love, the surrender, the sacrifice, the focus, the exclusive devotion of her gopi expansions, their gopa associates, the cows, his parents, the trees, Hanuman, Jatayu, the earth. He's able to experience and reciprocate the love of all devotees in tasting and reciprocating the love of Radha. And to say in that way he reciprocates, repays, and reimburses them for their love and sacrifice is a major understatement. Because what is he giving in return? Braj Ras, which he's showering upon, as C.C. explains it during Ratha Yatra, upon King Prataparudra, his ministers, the devotees, the pilgrims, everyone, he's showering them with Braj Ras. In that way, far beyond compensating, repaying, and reciprocating their love since time immemorial. So, when Lord Chaitanya appears for the purpose of granting the ultimate treasure of Braj Prem to the infinity of jivas in exchange for whatever devotion they offer, the love of all the devotees finds its most perfect and complete fulfillment, reciprocation, reimbursement. And his exclusive focus on the love of Radha to the extent of actually becoming her, experiencing and practicing her exclusive surrender and sacrifice, as well as revealing, sharing, and distribute the taste of that love with all the world, is the means by which he repays all the debts incurred in his former Braj Leela. And those Rasika devotees, Premi Bhaktas, who worship Lord Gauranga by Prem Sankirtan, offer their Prem Bhakti Mala at the lotus feet of Sri Nam Prabhu. And when they feel under the shelter and influence of Yogamaya and guidance of Sri Radha, the pain of acute separation, they chant Hare Krishna. And with the beauty of the holy names, decorate Sri Nam with this garland of Goloka Prem intertwined with Braja Prem. And that same Sri Nam Murti, Krishna, though not in the mood of the enjoyer, preferring a disposition of benefactor to the world, offers this garland back to the earth in loving exchange. Therefore, he wove a wreath of the holy names in Goloka Prem with which he garlanded all the earth. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments? I know you'd rather absorb yourselves in his sweet childhood play than hear some old earthling try to discuss theology. But this will enhance our hearing of the Leelas tomorrow. Any questions or comments?
Because Swami and Prabhupada was propagating this knowledge, separation from Krishna, or showing us this limit. So my question is, how do we endeavor to feel this, to cultivate this within our hearts?
First, you have to develop love for Krishna before you can feel separation from Krishna. Because our experience of separation in the conditioned state is simply ignorance. When we come out of that ignorance by awakening to the nature of love for Krishna and realize that we don't have that love, and therefore we have distanced and separated ourselves from his love, and the emptiness and the dissatisfaction that ensues, it fuels a hankering to experience his love. And, you know, it's not that separation is the goal in and of itself. That would be meaningless. The significance is found in the deeper communion found in separation. And Vrindavan within your heart begins to blossom in your meditation. And the luster of that celestial world just eclipses all the shadows of mundane experience. And we rise above the dualities of material life and experience sambandha, connection, relationship with Krishna, which leads to abhidaya, prayojana, and time. So separation is, it sounds paradoxical and contradictory. The highest ecstasy is the utmost agony. But that's superficial perspective, the internal dynamic, the deeper communion. Furthermore, Krishna's Leela is not linear. It's not one event after another. It's cyclical. It's enhancing the previous ones and unfolding the next ones. So in separation, the common saying that separation makes the heart grow fonder. Those episodes, first of all, separation is an illusion because we can't be separate from Krishna. He's everywhere and everything. It's our own ignorance and the ensuing illusion. The divine illusion after we feel some love for Krishna, then now, where's he gone? After stealing my heart. Those episodes of separation make the inevitable ensuing reunion reveal Krishna as more beautiful, sweet, and relishable than ever before, as seen through the eyes of enhanced love due to those episodes of separation. So in that way, the cyclical, ever-increasing, expanding, dynamic nature of spiritual life is maintained and enhanced.
Maharaj, you mentioned at one point in the lecture how, because of Krishna understanding his divine position, has to be covered over by yoga maya to experience these loving relationships. So the question is, what is the fundamental difference between Krishna's situation here, being covered, and the Mayavadi who will say, yes, we're simply covered now, but when we are uncovered, we realize our divine position. Fundamental difference.
Okay. To experience intimate relationships with Krishna requires one of two influences. Just say Sakya Ras, as personified in the Gopas, friendship with Krishna. Friendship necessitates equality. You can have a friend, but if you come to know that he's actually son of the king, you can't treat him the same way. Because that equality is altered. Friendship requires equality. So you can't just say, I'm a friend of Krishna. Because how did you become equal? There's two ways. Either he comes down to our level under the influence and mirage of Yoga Maya, or we rise to his level by the process called Mayavadi, which is delusive and offensive. So Mayavadi's theory is that we're God, I'm God, you're God, we're all God. And that actually makes devotional service quite nice. Because if I'm God and you're God, then you're me and I'm you, and by serving you, I'm really serving me. And that's just the perfect antithesis of reality. So the Mayavadi's theory is that we're all God. We forgot it. We got covered over. The question is, how does God become covered over? Well, actually, he does by his own desire and the influence of Yoga Maya. But what they're talking about is Mahamaya, which cannot overpower the Lord. So the whole theory is terribly defective. Yes, Krishna can and is covered by his own illusory potency. That's Yoga Maya. That's directly under his control and desire. Mahamaya is the consequence of the living entity's envy of Krishna, wanting to forget him, which is only possible by his own energy. But the idea that can be overcome by our own effort is the perpetual Tower of Babel, or staircase of Ravana, repeating itself various forms. It simply takes us further away from Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
My question is like, we're also we hear that the whole thing is our illusion. But my stage, I feel many times illusion overcomes it. So, what do you suggest and what I'm doing wrong? What how we can grow ourselves?
What was that again?
We hear the holy name that is all illusion, but at my stage, I feel the illusion is overtakes many times to try, but so just asking what my things are doing wrong, practice wise.
Well, there's different perspectives. One is, what form of holy name are we practicing? Is it Namabas? Is it Namaparad? Is it Shuddhanam? Namaparad, which is not really a holy name, it increases our delusions. Namabas dispels illusion, and Shuddhanam reveals full luster of the truth. The other thing to consider is that by the influence of the holy name, when we begin to develop a little spiritual vision, ability, the shadows in our life, there's no shadows at night. It's when the sun rises, shadows become evident. So you might think that there's more darkness and shadows in my life now. That's because the sun is rising and creating a distinction between the light and the darkness, which we didn't know when we were totally immersed in nothing but darkness. So look back at how far we've come. That's very important in our progress. Look how far we've come. And also to just be attentive. Are we overcoming the material desires and offenses which compromise the effect of the holy name? And with a little taste and appreciation for the holy name, you can actually become grateful for the temptations that try to take us away from Krishna, because they clarify where we need to shed the light. And then that makes us very much aware of our dependence on Krishna to help us overcome the darkness and the shadows. And we can use that dependence as an impetus to more feelingly and lovingly call upon His holy name. So, it's hard to keep track of how much you've grown just by looking in the mirror every day. When you look at images of your childhood, you realize, well, I've grown a lot. And it's important to keep track. How are we progressing in Krishna consciousness? You may think, I'm not where I wanted to be. But look how far you've come. And then use that as inspiration to come that much further in the future.
Krishna, just one more.
Okay?
I'm struggling with a number of things.
That's a good thing. That's how we become strong.
Yeah.
You can consider it to be exercise for the soul.
I don't yet have a spiritual master. This is one of the things I'm struggling with. So my question is not necessarily related to this, but hearing us today, it's very obvious how important it is to always be reading and hearing about the past times of Krishna and Lord's time. And you were saying how the Bible Gita ends and Krishna Bhagavatam begins. Krishna Bhagavatam ends and Krishna Chaitanya begins. And so my question, I mean, hear that, we should be reading all of these kind of at the same time, even though we aren't necessarily ready to be reading, all of them. So my question is, how do you approach studying these texts so that we can get the most out of that study, given wherever we are at that particular moment in our Christian consciousness? Should we be studying with others? Should we be reading on our own? Listening to classes, what balance of these things?
The Satsanga Tyaga, Vaishnavachara, avoid unfavorable association and gravitate toward and cultivate more of good association. The message of Shastra comes through the teachings of the Guru by the grace of devotees. When we're in healthy relationship with devotees, even until the time we've decided who will be our Guru and surrender to him, Srila Prabhupada's Vani comes through the devotees. And you can experience that in various ways. One is that, for example, Krishna's Braj Leela in the Bhagavatam is very exalted, elevated subject. And normally we would not approach it without a thorough study and practice of Bhagavad Gita's teachings, followed by the first 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, which are all preliminary preparation for approaching 10th canto. And yet we see that Srila Prabhupada gave us 10th canto first, which you can appreciate in different ways. He didn't know how long he had left in this world. He wanted that we had his version of 10th canto before hearing it from who knows who. And then he scrutinizingly, painstakingly provided us the 9 cantos. Thing is, Krishna book, which is a summary study of 10th canto, is so perfectly and beautifully integrated and framed in the teachings of Bhagavad Gita in the first 9 cantos, that in reading Krishna book, you're getting the complete package, the essence of Gita, the succession of Bhagavatam, and the culmination in the 10th canto. You're getting it all in one text due to Srila Prabhupada's very personal delivery of that message for the Western world. So in terms of, proper preparation, how to proceed in our study of Shastra, Srila Prabhupada's books are intended for the Western, for everyone, but with specific application of the Western mind, which means they're safe and they're system that anywhere you turn, you'll find relevant instructions. And if you're always in a very prayerful mood, then Super Soul will guide you where to open and what will highlight itself on the page for your attention. Meanwhile, developing healthy relationships with devotees will give you a devotional environment which will make it clear where and how you should proceed in your journey through Shastra. And then, gradually, not to jump ahead, but certain, and there again is Paramama. Well, certain inspirations and inclinations will guide you. And of course, we need to be always protected by the association of devotees in case we're deceived and thinking that yes, Paramama is guiding me when it's really some other voice. So the association of devotees is our protection and guidance in our journey through Shastra and our cultivation of relationship with Krishna's holy name. Hare Krishna.
She mentioned the karma regarding the position of Lord Krishna. So in this yuga, Krishna the avatar comes, and when he's bewildered, he's rightly bewildered. He's the Krishna himself who is here. But in other yugas, when Krishna the avatar, who comes from Shiva tradition, the bewilderment is correct because it's not the Krishna. I mean, it's the Krishna.
It's not Krishna from Vrindavan.
Right. It's the Krishna from Shiva tradition.
Right.
So his bewilderment is correct. Right?
So his what?
Bewilderment regarding the position of Krishna is correct. Because it's not the Krishna from Vrindavan.
The conception that Krishna is an expansion of Kiradaksha Vishnu is actually Shastric. Because, Jayadev Goswami Das Avatar Stotrams and various lists in Shastra of the incarnations, Krishna and Balaram are listed as incarnations of Kiradaksha Vishnu. So a partial understanding of Shastra will confirm that perspective. And it's true, but it's not complete. Krishna is not only an avatar of Kiradaksha Vishnu, he's the source of Kiradaksha Vishnu. And that complete understanding is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now, that makes you wonder, where are the accounts of the golden avatar in the other 999 Kali Yugas in the day of Brahma? I don't even know of any such accounts anywhere in Shastra. And this is quite amazing. And I can only liken it to use a very crude example. There's this source of, whatever it's a source of, it's called news or newspapers. It gives you a perspective of what's going on in the world. So, not really knowing what's going on in the world very much, but having a little dim glimmer that I hear through devotees say, Vladimir Putin and President Biden became the best of friends. They shaved up, became brahmacharis in the ashram of the temple in Potomac. That would be big news. That would be such big news that there probably wouldn't be anything else between the front and back cover of every newspaper, magazine, and newsreel. What do they call that? Groundbreaking news or something like that? And everything else just, falls out behind the back page. That's a crude example of what we have here in CC, that the avatari appeared in the previous yuga, came back in this yuga to give access to everything he revealed in Braj. That is such groundbreaking news that whatever the Yuga Avatar did and the other 999 times in a day of Brahma is, it's glorious, but in comparison, it's not even worthy of our distraction. Focus on the groundbreaking story. Krishna came in the mood of Radha, so that we, worshiping him as God through Vaidhi Bhakti, will simultaneously be cultivating Raganuga within our hearts. Because although he is God, worthy to be served by Vaidhi Bhakti, he is simultaneously Radha. Following whom we embark on the path to Braja. That is such outstanding story that it might not be worth our time getting distracted. What did the other 999 Yuga avatars do? We know they established Yuga Dharma through the chanting of the holy name in Vaidhi Bhakti. And everyone who matured in that devotion attained Vaikuntha. And that's glorious. But he wanted something more. Vaikuntha is the residence of most of the perfected souls in all creation. There are certain select, chosen individuals who can't be happy in Vaikuntha, or Dwarka, or Mathura, like Gopakumar and Brihad Bhagavatamrita. He was not satisfied in any of those destinations. So Narada Muni told him, go back to earth, take shelter of Govardhan, chant holy name, and attain Vrindavan. That is such outstanding news that, of course, we're interested, but engineerically we know, okay, the Yuga avatars came, Golden Avatar comes every Kali Yuga and gives Yuga Dharma in Nam Sankirtan. This Kali Yuga he gave Prem Sankirtan. And within our Vaidhi Bhakti, Raganuga is taking shape because we're worshiping the Lord as the Golden Avatar, whose heart's image is Radha's emotions, which we're following in Prem Sankirtan, which is taking us to those most sweet and holy groves of Braj. That's the outstanding news that eclipses everything else. Even news in the spiritual world, let us speak of news in this world.
Anyone else? I'm just curious, Maharaj, we were talking about the weather starting with the Lord Rama. I'm sure there's some kind of power to our own bewilderment and doubts which arise as we, even after taking the process, which you draw some power.
Doubts are blessings. They're inspiration to seek the light. Because doubts, they can only live in darkness. And we've been in darkness for so long, we just take our doubts to be normal. And when we take to the chanting the holy name, and the sun begins to rise, and rather than all-pervading darkness, we're seeing shadows, which are doubts. It means we're looking in the wrong direction. To see a shadow, you have to have your back to the sun. So when you see the shadow, it's a reminder and an indicator. Turn around. You know, nature is a wonderful educational institution. Did you ever watch an owl? They're quite remarkable. They're very active at night. You hear them. But then, when the sun rises, they turn their head in the opposite direction. And then as the sun is moving from east to west, they keep turning their head. They keep their back to the light. Now, even though I guess they're sleeping in the day, but they keep moving their head to keep their focus on the shadows. And then when the sun sets and everything's dark, and then they start communicating and making themselves known and active. Who are the owls in this room? That in spite of the sun rising and revealing itself in full midday splendor, we keep our vision turned to the darkness and the shadows and the cobwebs of empiric thought. You can use it as an impetus, especially when you feel the suffering of that ignorance. Turn around. What does repentance mean? It doesn't mean you beat yourself up. It means you turn around. Sin and ensuing ignorance means you miss the mark. That's understandable. We're jivas. We're faulty by nature. We have that opportunity all times in free will. Just turn around, turn to the light. And then when you do, you can appreciate the shadows as wake-up call to redirect your vision in a better direction. And then just, any obstacle, any temptation, you can receive with gratitude as an opportunity to demonstrate your love by turning away from your previous ways and turning toward the light and the path back to home. And if you ever see an owl, just watch them. and then consider who you're really looking at. Reflection.
Thank you. I'm going back to Sarah's first question. I
And then when we were questioning, I remember what was your, I remember I had this answer about the separation. And I said we cannot really feel separation unless we feel it now. So we don't feel it, so how can we start?
The first indications of love are attraction to the holy name and service to the devotees. And practically speaking, you will experience when those first indications appear in your life, and then you lose them, you feel an actual loss. It's really the loss of yourself. And that would naturally generate a yearning and a hankering to reestablish that connection and maintain and cultivate it. And even that will be interspersed with times when you don't have that association of devotees, you don't have that taste for the holy name. Whether it's our own shortcomings or Krishna actually withdrawing those resources from us. Either way, we can use the ensuing emptiness, loneliness, and loss of purpose and meaning as impetus to rise to the occasion and delve more deeply into the association and relationships of devotees and the chanting of the holy name. Anything else? We will continue tomorrow.
3:30.
What's that?
3:30 p.m.
Shri Gaura Purnima ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Srinivai Gaura Purnima.